Lots of conversation this week in regard to Texans owner Bob the Rooster McNair, who has been known to get in there with the ox, man, and go hard for his. I'll never forget that quote, Bob. Love you for that. A lot of conversation this week all across the local media about the proposed extensions of head coach Gary Kubiak and general manager Rick Smith. Here's my angle. Well, you know what? Before I give you my angle, let me comment briefly on the scuttlebutt that I was hearing all week from the rest of the guys on the other stations. For some reason, they took it up on themselves to debate day after day, show after show, making ridiculous arguments and points in regard to whether or not Gary Kubiak deserves an extension. He and Rick Smith. And particularly, I heard more about Gary Kubiak. It's simple, folks. If the man cutting the check deems them worthy, it's just that simple. They're worthy. It's not your money. It's not your situation. You know, you folks, you say, many of you say you don't believe in the media. You don't put a lot of validity in what you get from the media, but then you turn around and base your opinions on things based on what you've heard from the media, because none of you are in cahoots with the Houston Texans. None of you know what the expectations are from Bob McNair when he sits behind closed doors with Gary Kubiak and Rick Smith. And to make the ridiculous argument about what Gary Kubiak did the previous 5 years and what the hell that has to do with them going forward, I just don't know, Josh Ennis. And to the rest, not to pick on Josh, but to the rest of you guys that made any point even remotely close to that, what the hell does that have to do with anything? By the terms of you guys' own argument, you shouldn't be in your jobs then. Because many of you barely had a resume before you were plugged in to your present roles in radio. I'm not saying I want you fired. Don't get all antsy in your pants. What I'm saying is, in regard to your argument with the Texans and Gary Kubiak, it's ridiculous. Now, why is it ridiculous, Craig? Well, one reason it's ridiculous. Heat 95, Pacers 86. Game 1 goes to the Heat. One of the issues is, if you want to look at that first 5 year, that first 5 year tenure of Gary Kubiak, and it's one little minor thing that none of you guys talked about this week. I didn't tweet it. I didn't want to put anything out there to give anybody a chance to react. You act like Gary Kubiak inherited a winning organization year one. You mean to tell me that you actually had expectations of the Texans being successful the first couple of years that Gary Kubiak was head coach? Really? After inheriting a 2-14 roster. Important word, roster. Not 2-14 football team that somehow played down to 2-14, that the roster clearly states this is at minimum 9-7, 10-6, at low end 8-8 team, and some injuries happened, some bad things went wrong, and before you knew it, we were 2-14. We lost our quarterback. No, Gary Kubiak inherited a 2-14 roster, talent that was not NFL worthy, most of it. Talent that didn't go and catch on and do much else or play at all anywhere else. So how in the hell are you gonna put a 5-year jacket on a guy when you damn well know the first couple of years that Gary Kubiak took that job with the Texans? I know there are some folks that are pulling over on the side of the road. Craig defending Gary Kubiak. Man, I'm defending common damn sense. Hell, the man inherited a 2-14 roster. So you can forget about the first couple of years. He wasn't going to win with that roster. He had to totally turn that roster over. Now, when you start getting into year 3, 4, and 5, you can make your arguments. But if you turn a roster over that's really a true 2-14 roster, you turn it over in a couple of years, I just don't think that you folks have a realistic expectation. Well, the Saints did this. And that team, that has nothing to do with the Texans situation. I'm not saying Gary Kubiak's great. I know he's not great. I know he's not a great head coach. I know he's not. That's not even arguable. We know he's not a great head coach. But you don't have to be a great head coach to win. You have to have really, really good players to win. And 1 or 2 great players. And a really effective system, which he has offensively. And he has a defensive coordinator in place. Nobody told Gary Kubiak to tow Rick Smith along with him from Denver. His little mole when he was up in Denver. Nobody told him to tow Rick Smith in with him and sell that concept to Bob McNair and go first-time head coach, first-time GM. Bob McNair made the decision to do that. Well, if you pay close attention to Rick Smith in his comments regarding the draft this year, clearly he's become a lot more confident in the draft process, in the process of evaluating players and making sure that the Texans draft process, their template, is in place. He was so confident. You can hear it in his voice this year. He was really, really confident. I was glad to hear that from Rick Smith. Gary Kubiak and Rick Smith deserve their extensions. Folks are always wanting to do something.